episode of the Next Fix podcast. Today we've got Kerie Logan. She's a professional working with people to turn some things around in their lives. She's doing it with a very interesting approach that gets me a little fired up. She's talking about consciousness and the different levels of this consciousness. And so I do get tickled. I get a little nerdy. I let her know that beforehand, before hitting record. So this is going to be a fun conversation. And so that being said, Kerie, I want to tell you, I'm so thankful for your time and the energy that you are going to bring, because I know you're going to bring it. And that being said, we hit the ground running here. And so you've expressed to me that you are familiar with rock bottom moments, right? And you do have a bit of a comeback story. So I'd love for you to unpack this, right? And to my very delightfully ignorant ears.
Well, there's something, Ryan, that you don't know about me, and a lot of people don't know about me. And just this year, I've been coming out sharing this truth. Is when I talk about rock bottom, my rock bottom for me was toxic people and narcissistic people. And I am the author of the book, The Undetected Narcissist. And I did a podcast for 3 years on narcissism, and the difference between my style and, let's say, 99% of the other people out there is I come from a place of compassion, understanding, acceptance, and forgiveness, because the truth is we humans create these types of people. And if you don't like them, we got to learn how we're creating them and how to stop that pattern and the cycle from repeating itself.
Yeah.
And so the book that I wrote, it was literally my story of how I met someone narcissistic, how I left the person, and how they basically spent 5 years plotting how to destroy me.
Okay.
Yes. And why I wrote it was to stop child abuse and to stop this kind of injustice, because it happens every day, every single day. And that's the hard part about our legal system, is they're not trauma informed. They don't know a lot about mental health. They especially don't know about autism or even masking. And so I wrote it coming from a perspective of wisdom and understanding, so people could really grasp the concept, because right now the main focus on narcissism is hate, anger, fear. And the truth is, Ryan, you can't fully heal and recover coming from that mindset. You're always hiding. You feel, I gotta hide in the closet. I'm numb inside. You're scared to date again. And I don't want people to live like that. That's not living. That's just existing. So,
okay. Now, Kerie,
yeah.
I hate to pump the brakes here, but you're talking like about a lot of things, and I'm
Yeah.
like thinking, I'm like, oh my God, child abuse, narcissism,
Yeah.
which I think it's a major issue, and it seems like most people, including myself, like, am rather ignorant. I've wondered if I am a narcissist. Like there's a lot of things like that I don't know. But you mentioned some other really heavy hitters here, and so the court system for 5 years, and them trying to destroy you. So I guess maybe just like elaborate on kind of what you were up against. Like, who was this person in your life? Or like, like how did that all kind of develop?
Well, it was my son's father. With a lot of people, the way that a narcissist person kind of sucks you in is they love bomb you. And let's be honest, who doesn't like to be love bombed? I mean, who doesn't like to be adored and appreciated and, oh, you're the most important thing in the world? We all like that. But the problem is it's not genuine love. It's superficial love. And once they know they got you hooked, think about it as a drug dealer. Once they know they got you hooked, then they start to devalue you. And then you're basically grabbing onto morsels of affection, hoping it will go back to the old way, but it never will. And it never does. And it creates identity erosion where you lose your sense of self. Yeah.
And so now kind of going back, it's like the 5-year battle. It seems like, was that like when you had dug your heels in, you drew the line in the sand and said, you're out of my life, and that's where like that particular battle happened? Well, I guess a real question here is like, where along the lines did you say it again? The identity, what was it? Identity
erosion.
Erosion. Right. Okay. So now that seems, when I think of erosion, I think of that as a gradual kind of a thing. Is that what had happened to you? Is that your identity just like over time just vanished? Is that how it happened?
It chipped away where I started to lose a sense of myself, and I was unhappy every single day. Every single day I was unhappy, and I knew I was in a relationship that wasn't healthy anymore. And we did try to go to marriage counseling for like 3 months because I gave him the ultimatum. I said, look, either we work on this or we got it, or we end it, because it's not fair to you and it's not fair to me and it's not fair to our son to see us, treating each other this way. We need to do something. And the real truth is, at the end of the 3 months, he just flat out admitted, I haven't done anything. I don't want to change. I think the relationship's fine just the way it is. And yeah, I know. And I was like, I can't live like this anymore. I really can't, because he was getting his needs met, but I wasn't getting mine. And so
it started out with you getting all of your needs, like the love bomb, right? She was going, and
yes.
then somehow it like flipped this on you, right? And then what you're mentioning is that's a testament to how much of a narcissist that he was. It's that he almost like skillfully like did it without you quite understanding what had happened until it was too late and your identity had been is erosion. What is the past tense of erosion?
It is, because a lot of times they make you believe that you can't live without them, that no one's going to love you as much as they love you. No one's going to take care of you the way that they take care of you. You're so damaged, no one's going to want you, but I want you. I mean, he didn't say that, but these are some ways that they feed these lies. And because your self-esteem is so low, you believe it. And so a lot of times people stay because they think, well, who is going to love me? And who is going to take care of me? And it's what you call covert control. It's really unhealthy. And so what was really fascinating, though, is during that time, someone mentioned, like a child psychologist mentioned to me, that your ex is narcissistic. And I thought, really? And so I looked up the definition, and the only definition back then that I really found was a grandiose one. And I thought, no, he's not. He's quiet. He's shy. He's nerdy. He drives a violet Kia. I mean, how masculine is that? And he just didn't fit that profile. I'm sorry you're laughing, right? But it's true.
Right.
But the thing is he was a covert narcissist, and they are quiet. They have what you call cold anger. They literally plot, and they'll smile in your face and act like everything's okay, but they are plotting your demise in the background. They are very dangerous, extremely dangerous. So I didn't know this is who and what I was dealing with. And not until I learned the key words of the behaviors and traits, like what is gaslighting? What's projection? What's stonewalling? What's baiting? What's the silent treatment? What are flying monkeys? What undermining? When I started to learn all those definitions, it was like light bulbs going off in my head. And I was like, holy cow, this is everything I deal with on a regular basis. And this is messed up. It was like psychologically messed up. I was just like, I can't believe people do this to other human beings, because it went against my true nature. Yeah. And that's why I had to learn to be a step ahead of this person. And I had to learn how to communicate with them, because they're not solution oriented. A lot of them aren't. They like to blame you. They don't want to take responsibility for their actions and behaviors. And it's very troubling and challenging. But once you know the terms and definitions and the games, when they do it, you don't take it personal anymore. You realize that's their stuff. It's not mine. And you then have a choice. Do I want to respond, or do I want to react? The problem is a lot of times when people get triggered, they react. And that's exactly what they want you to do. Because then when you react, they're going to flip it and say, see, you're so angry all the time. See, you're manipulative. See, you're the narcissist. and they throw it back. That's projection. They throw it right back in your face, blaming you for the things that they do.
So this is a huge skill set that you've built, clearly, which I wish nobody had to develop this
I
type of a
know.
skill set. However, it is reality. And the whole time that you're talking, I'm thinking about maybe, a person who's in active addiction, what they will do to manipulate somebody. And some of those terms and some of those behaviors are like,
Yep.
lights are going off in my head. I did those things to people to perpetuate my addiction many times. Why? Because I only had one goal in mind. It was like, okay, I'm going to pull these puppet strings and do whatever I got to do to get my mission fulfilled. And that was to continue my use of substances. So, but that's what's going on in my mind. But nonetheless, that skill set, it seems to me that skill set could easily be communicated to somebody who's been an enabler, right? Like you have to build skills to no longer be an enabler in the same way. You have to know how to see those moves coming from a mile away. Otherwise, you're just stuck in there and you're doing what they want you to do. But this is what you had to develop, being in a relationship and working with somebody that's a narcissist. You had to learn how to defend yourself by probably, boundaries comes to mind, but like that just seems like a lower hanging fruit as far as the tools that you had to develop. So what did you have to do, or how did you even begin to create the person that you are, a person who is resistant to narcissistic behavior?
That's a great question. And I wanted to say why developing all these skills is so important. It prevents you from getting blindsided. And that's another term, because they can blindside you. Yes. And enabling a person. And that's the hard part, is when they guilt trip you. If you're dealing with a vulnerable narcissist, they will guilt trip the hell out of you. And because you want to have empathy, you then give in, which is the wrong thing to do. So for my recovery, for me, I had to, every day I had to give myself grace. I really, really did. I had to be kind to myself because I was stuck in anger. I mean, who wouldn't? Let's be honest. Everybody, once they realize who and what they were dealing with, we do get angry. And then we get sad because we realize that I invested years of my life in this marriage or this relationship that was so dysfunctional. And it's like, I've had children with these people. I'm working with one guy that's been married to one for 43 years. He's in his 70s, and his doctors told him, you need to leave this woman. She is causing you so much stress, and this terminal cancer you have is going to kill you anyway. So, and he's like, but I still love her. I love her so much, but I can't be with her. I need your help. And so I'm working with someone on helping that. So for me, what I had to do is I literally had to give myself grace every day. And what helped me the most, I would say, is educating myself on all the terminology, on getting to a place where I could accept him for who he is and find a way to forgive him. Because forgiveness
I saw the forgiveness coming down the pipe there. And it's huge.
And that's hard because if you read my book, is forgiving the unforgivable. And I know how to do that. And I know it sounds crazy because there's a Indian woman out there that's very popular in the world of narcissism all over YouTube and stuff. And she recently did an episode about I will not forgive the unforgivable and this and that. And she had a lot of anger. And that was what was interesting, is this 70-year-old man said, I can't listen to her anymore because I know I can't heal if I'm stuck in this anger. And he said, I was praying to the rosary and everything. And then I found you and I listened to you and you were like, wow, that's what I need. And this is who I need to talk to. So I'm not pushing her away or stuck in anger, how can I have compassion towards her? How can I accept her for who and what she is and still love her, but come from a place of healing instead of anger, resentment, and bitterness? How can I do this? Because I only have so many, months or a year to live or whatever. I don't want to be like this. And so
now, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, I'm thinking about you working with this individual who, very unique individual because of the stage that they're in their life, in addition to having cancer, which is speeding up. It's shrinking that that runway significantly. And so, but I'm wondering, and I'm kind of going off of what I had read about you previously, before we got on here, was about you addressing the consciousness, right? And I think it's so cool. And you had you shared a very little bit with me,
right?
Consciousness, how do you approach that, the levels of consciousness? And then in addition to that, how could somebody use these tools that you're familiar with to escape victimhood or change that victim mentality?
Right. So on my website, Master the Upper Rooms, and it is a Master the Upper Rooms it's basically of your human consciousness. How can you master yourself? And there's these images on there that are free. And I remember I showed you earlier, but here's the 3D human consciousness. And so what you were just talking about is when someone is stuck in the victim mentality, that vibrates at the frequency of 50. And Dr. David Hawkins is the one that did the clinical trials of Map of the Human Consciousness. And this, I don't want to sound weird or woo-woo here, Ryan, but in 2012, I woke up one day and was told by Spirit, you're going to write this book, and here's the table of contents, and sit down and start typing. And so I did. And when I got to chapter 2 about understanding the power of our emotions, that's when I channeled this information. And I was like, wow, this is fascinating. And the book is called Affirming and Focusing on Living a Better Life. And what spoke to me said, there's science that backs this. And I was like, really? And I said, yes. So I went online, and that's when I discovered his work. And I wanted to tell him, do you realize what you found? Like, this is the holy grail of trying to achieve the ascension process or be one with our Creator or just following the teachings of Jesus. And I'm not a religious person at all, but this is what he wanted to teach us. It's how to embody kindness, compassion, acceptance, and unconditional love. How to forgive the unforgivable, how to be the presence of peace, all of that. And so, And this is the truth, Ryan. We can be adults physically in our body, but so immature up here. So that's what 4D human consciousness is this graph here. There's courage, there's acceptance, kindness, compassion, there's empathy. There's, and so I'll give you a good example. So I had a gentleman come in just last week that really struggles with being resistant to trying new things, and especially around the subject of food. And he came in and he starts to tell his story like everybody does. And I said, wait a minute, I know exactly where you're stuck. Do you want to know? And he said, yes. And I said, you're stuck at the frequency of 100. You're stuck in fear. You're restless, you're irritable, anxiety, withdrawn, you have nervousness, you're guarded, hypervigilant, suspicious, worrywart, wishy-washy, fear of failure. You second guess yourself often. Your mind stews, so you probably can't sleep at night, and you have the inability to trust other people. And he looked at me, pulled up his phone and said, I put all that in my notes. How did you know that? And we both start laughing. I said, this is what I teach. And I said, so I want to get you up here. I want you to have the courage, which is at 200, to try something new, to where you have confidence, you respect yourself, you have a healthy self of pride. You're open to learning new things, you're flexible, you're determined, But then I also want you to do 250, which is where you're satisfied with life. You do have inner confidence. You're adaptable. You're grounded, centered, balanced, easygoing. You're realistic, And I said, would you like that? And he said, oh, I would love to be there. Love to be there. And I said, great, we're going to do this. We're going to get you up here. And so that's the cool thing about what I do, Ryan, is I'm a clinical certified hypnotherapist. In that whole conversation, that was the pre-talk. I got that into his conscious mind. I turned that into a green light because in the subconscious, it's learned through his life experiences, trying new things is scary. It is bad. It's taboo or whatever. And that's a red light. And so now that I have them congruent, when I get them to relax and slow down their brainwave patterns, and it's been shown even in meditation, and I say exactly what he wants, it creates that change like that. And that's why I tell people, listen to it for 30 days. Because I said, you've been operating on this system for 45 years. You've got to take 30 days to commit to yourself to rewire your brain. And it's amazing how it works.
I'm somewhat familiar with Hawkins and those layers and the frequencies, And yes. Before you had mentioned it, I was thinking about that. Like courage is like the turning point. Am I right? Like courage is exactly where you start to gain that positive frequency, and up until you hit courage, like what is just below courage, right? I mean, I know fear, shame, guilt, all those. I want to say those are fame.
Below courage is where below courage is 175, and that's being prideful, but in an egotistical way. It is vanity. You're self-righteous. You're a scorekeeper. You're defensive. You're detached, inflated ego. You deflect the truth. It's all about prestige. You're demanding. There's a two-faced gossip, a bully, a control freak. You're judgmental and black and white thinking. And that doesn't work. It's like you can't agree to disagree because it's my way or the highway. And that's not fair.
Yeah. So now in your work, right? So in the hypnotherapy, what you're able to do is to get people to live at a higher frequency, right? Is that what I'm picking up on?
Yes, that's what I do is I really instill in their subconscious mind that they are confident, they're grounded, centered, and balanced. So like with this guy, I realized that this actually for him was generational trauma. It was because his father was the same way and so was his grandfather. And it's something that was passed down. And that's why I asked him, did anyone in your family ever get food poisoning? Because that's, the intuitive hit I'm getting. And he said, I don't know, but I probably think so because generational trauma is something that can be stored in our DNA up to 7 generations. I don't know if you even knew that.
Let me walk through like a hypothetical here, right? Okay, because I am curious as to how like you do work with people that are in recovery or up against substance abuse and things like that.
Yes.
And it's never just one thing, right? So here I am, I'm coming to see you, and I have been attempting to get sober, but I keep relapsing. And so I've been using substances, I've been drinking and doing drugs since I was like 13. But I come to you and I express to you, like, how does that kind of look? How does it look? Like I walk into your office, I reach out to you and then we start to work together. Like, how would you begin to help somebody that is, trying to get traction in recovery?
Well, the biggest thing is I would want to know, what does it do for you? Because it does something for you and it is an escape mechanism. And what are you trying to escape from? Really what is it? And what's the cycle for you? Because you have to think what I'm seeing is like a hamster wheel, okay? Because it's a really vicious cycle. You tell yourself, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But then what do? Do you rationalize? Do you justify the behavior? Is it a form of reward? Or is it because you're just so damn angry at someone, you really just want to escape? You know, what are your patterns? What are your habits? And then I do like to know, is there anyone else in your family that has addictive behaviors? Because addictions live at the frequency of 75. You know, is there anybody? And has anyone experienced any traumatic experience, like an OD? That's traumatic. You almost died, an OD situation. And then I would want to figure out, if you started at the age 13, what was happening in your life at that time? What made you decide to do it? You know, was it influenced by someone else, like a friend? Did you see someone doing it? You know, what was it that got you to do that? And then really, and so the method I would kind of do is gathering all the information. I clearly would want to do inner child work. I would want to do a parts therapy. Have you ever heard about like internal family systems?
Yes. Right.
Okay. I'm trained in NLP. Yeah. I'm trained in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and it's called parts therapy. So what I do is I would create a safe space for you. A lot of people like to be in a cabin in the woods with the fireplace and all that. And then there's a knock at the door, and that's your inner child. And you open the door and you invite it in, and you have a conversation and you talk to that part, and whatever it was that you didn't get, you want to apologize about. You want to say, I'm sorry you went through this. You know, I'm sorry we had to deal with this. But right now, I'm not 13 anymore. Let's say I'm 45. And this behavior and habit we formed is hurting us, because you're a part of me and I'm a part of you. And I want us to no longer hurt or struggle or sabotage ourself, our success, our life, our happiness, because I don't want to die from another overdose. I don't want to live like this. Can you help me? Can we work together? Can you join the main personality, where we're a force of nature for good and we take care of ourselves in a healthier way? And sometimes I like to find out, what else would you like to do instead of taking drugs? Do you want to exercise more? Do you want to really focus on clean living? Do you want to meditate? Do you want to do yoga? What can you replace that habit with? So when you're stressed out or you feel like you get that impulse, you got to replace it with something positive, something healthy and constructive for you. And so then what I would do is I would implant that information in your subconscious mind, and then see you, it's called future pacing, doing that together out in the future, a month from now, 3 months from now, to where you're in a situation, you feel stressed, but instead of going to drugs, you're doing this and you love it and you enjoy it. And you're so proud every day that you're free of this addiction once and for all. I mean, that's the approach I would take.
Right. Now supplanting, the desirable behavior in place of the destructive and addictive behavior. Yes. Right? Now, is the pace unique for everybody, depending on how deep that multi-generational trauma is and all the other variables? Or do you see like there's some kind of a standard pace for somebody? Because you had mentioned 30 days. And so I'm curious, like how much progress could somebody who has been using substances, almost their entire life, like how much progress could they make, like in a 30-day period?
Well, they could make amazing progress. Like, for example, this is what I tell people that's so important about the pre-talk is smokers know consciously they should not be smoking. They know it's bad for their health. They know it's a horrible, bad habit. And there was one gentleman that I worked with that smoked 2 packs a day. And he was so afraid when he came in. He was a retired, Marine veteran. He suffered a traumatic brain injury, from being in the war. And he's like, I don't like anyone fucking with my head. I don't want anyone in my brain. And he's like, but I have to quit. I'm doing this for my family. I gotta quit. And he said, I was so scared and nervous to come here that I actually smoked 3 packs yesterday. And he's like, I reek of cigarettes. And I was like, yeah, you do. You do. But I told him, look, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to approach it. So I kind of like softened the fears. I really told him, I think of me as I'm the tour guide and you're the one taking the journey. And the more you relax, the deeper the suggestions go. And everything I say is positive, and everything is what you want me to say anyway. It's what you've been saying to yourself for years or months. I'm just getting it in your head that no matter what happens in life, you handle it without cigarettes. That's what you want, right? And he said, yes. So the thing about the 30 days is it does take 30 days for your brain to rewire all the circuits and to create a new way of thinking, acting, behaving, removing the limiting beliefs, the self-sabotage. It takes that time period. And so I tell people, you can do hypnosis once, and that's a Band-Aid. But Band-Aids rip off. And when you think about learning how to drive a car, Ryan, you had to read a book and take a test and pass that test. Then you had to get in a vehicle and practice to prove that you could actually drive a car. And then you now have the ability, once you've learned how to drive, how to get in any vehicle that's automatic and still drive it. You can still in a stick. You learned how to drive a stick. You learned how to type. You learned how to ride a bike. It's easy. Yeah. So you want it to become automatic in your subconscious mind. And that's the key thing. And when I find people fail is when they stop at the 2-week mark because they think they own it. They think, oh, this is great. I don't need it anymore. But it's still not permanently wired in. You really want to give yourself grace and time. Because like you said, you were doing it for 30 years. Give yourself 30 days.
Now, let me just to differentiate here, because I'm wondering in my mind, now somebody does 30 days, right? And as you're mentioning, right, just like one go around is a Band-Aid and that type of a thing. And you're also mentioning things like being triggered. And so I'm curious, like, is it something that you arm people with as like a tool? Is it applicable in their lives? Are they, leaving after 30 days, one go around here, and then they're in life, and then they are maybe triggered, or they're having an urge or something like that? Is it like, is there any legwork on their part, like out there when they do come up against maybe a substance or something like that, or a situation or a trigger, or is it just in the subconscious? It's just in the subconscious level, and it just does it on its own because it's embedded in there.
It to be embedded where it goes on its own. So when you run into someone that wants to offer you drugs, you have the strength and the courage to say, no, I'm done with this. I know if I do this, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole of self-destruction. I'm not going to do that to myself anymore. And you have the power and the courage to do that, because you look at it as that person's not my friend. That person really wants, is not in my best interest, doesn't care about me, wants to just maybe profit or make money off of me, or try to gaslight me or whatever. I don't have to buy their bullshit.
Right. And so that, I feel like it's incredibly advantageous, because, you hear people speak about it, that a person that doesn't smoke, they just say, I don't smoke. They don't say, oh, I'm trying to quit, or no, I just quit. Look, their identity, right? They don't have identity erosion like you had suffered from, because now their identity is I don't smoke, or their identity is I don't drink. Why would I look at the drink menu? I don't do that. Like, it's just not me. And I feel like that's the holy grail of recovery, right? Like, that's the holy grail of being on the better end of a recovery journey, is when it's just left you. Like, it's not such a, and it's a glorious time to be in a recovery journey. Why? Because it's not a fist fight every day. And so what you're saying is that you can achieve maybe a level close to that, right? By being in that frequency of courage, right? And putting together a 30-day effort, right? And then embedding and supplanting these more desirable actions, and of course going through the hypnotherapy, right? So embedding that in the subconscious, we can reach that identity level. We can reach that level of frequency
Yes.
that is just a part of us, right? That's the goal, and that's what
Yes,
you
that's
do.
the
Am I right?
goal. Yeah, you walk the talk, you embody it. You're not masking or faking it. It is now a part of who you are. It's like you have this new identity, this new personality, this new way of thinking, acting, and behaving that is healthy instead of destructive.
Right.
It serves you instead of crippling you.
And like I said, that is that's where we want to be. I think that, like I said,
Yes.
it's like the holy grail of embodying a healthy person and no longer having that tether or that chain. That is super, super cool. Now, okay, so what do you have like on the forefront of your efforts, right? Like, or where can people work with you? Like, I want to know like what you've got coming next, or what, is there another book, or how does somebody come and work with you and do this, like what we've been kind of unpacking here?
So you can find me on mastertheupperrooms.com. You can even Google my name. It's so easy to find me. It's spelled Kerie, last name Logan. I'm on YouTube under Empowered Within and Master the Upper Rooms. I'm on the Insight Timer meditation app. I got some stuff on there. I'm on Instagram under Master the Upper Rooms. I'm even on the Undetected Narcissist, and I'm going to start season 4 of that series, but that one's more about reclaiming your power back. I've got like 25 topics. I made a whole list on this other computer of what I'm going to cover, and it's going to be like how to reclaim your sovereignty when you feel lost and abused by narcissistic abuse. Why am I so numb? Why am I so emotional? The hidden cost of people pleasing, the many faces of love, because we struggle with that, and the walls we build. I'm going to talk about walls. And there's so many things I want to break down, but to have people learn from it. And there's going to be metaphor stories, which are great, that help people kind of unlock their rigid way of thinking. And there's going to be, self-realization journal techniques. There's going to be mini meditations. There's going to be techniques to like call back your power, and even daily self-empowerment tools based on the segments, to really, really help people in finding a sense of relief and getting their life back on track. Because that's the hardest thing I find with everybody, including me, is the most scary one is, how can I let my wall down of safety and security and open up my heart again to meet someone new? That's the biggest challenge. And I'm going to talk about that. And I'm even going to talk about how to forgive the unforgivable, because I've done it. And it's amazing.
I was going to say, I want to know. You had mentioned not a lot of people know about this comeback story that you are or have been in, but that you kind of left it, or maybe I interrupted you. I'm not sure, but like, what is like, I guess, the end, right? You were in this extensive battle with this narcissist who had accomplished their mission, right? They had eroded your identity, and you had suffered immensely, and they can't just leave your life altogether. Why? Because you share a son. So how did things look like for you and that narcissist, and they tried to destroy you? Clearly that wasn't the case, right? Because you're here and you look great and you sound great and you're doing all these amazing things. But where are you in that battle? I mean, is it 100% over, or are you still doing the work? I mean, how does it look these days?
For me, it's 100% over, and it's been over for quite a few years, which is really nice. And the one that it's not over with is our son, because he still has PTSD with everything that he experienced. And he did feel like his childhood was robbed from him. Because the hard part is, a lot of people don't know about masking, and our son has autism. And so he would mask when he would see his dad. He would be on his complete best behavior. And then he would come home and he would fall apart. And home was safe. And he would tell me all the horrible things that were said or done. And I would try to address them in a, like, this is what's going on. Can you please help me understand this? And long story short, what ended up happening is he convinced the judge that if our son lived with him, that all of his autism behaviors would go away. And the judge didn't know about masking, and the judge believed him because I was accused of all his bad behaviors. See, he acts out with her and this and that, but he's an angel at my house. And I could see his perspective. But why was he being that way? Why is he telling everyone, even the judge, I don't want to live with this man. He's mean. He's cold. I don't like him. And then his dad turns around and says, see, she told him to say this stuff. It was this vicious, ugly cycle. Well, long story short, yeah, I did lose custody of my son for 8 months. It was devastating. My son's worst nightmare became his reality, and he hated his dad. He even tried to kill himself, tried to kill his dad in the process. And here's the hard truth. When we seek revenge on someone, you better dig 2 graves, one for yourself and one for the other person, because karma does get you back. And that happened to him because 8 months later, he went back to the judge and said, the child should live with his mom. I damaged him. This guy, he lost his job. His wife left him. His whole world fell apart. And it's the sad, sad truth. And he doesn't see his son anymore. They don't even really talk. And it's really unfortunate. And it's sad because we've tried to get his dad to attend, trauma treatment, family therapy. And the words out of his mouth is, what trauma? What trauma? He can't get it. And I had to come to terms with that and be like, you know what? That's okay.
Wow.
You can heal without his support. We can do this. And that's the hard part for me is in my career, not until he's 18 can I actually professionally help him, because the law doesn't like you, being your kid's therapist. And I agree, because you should see someone else. And so there are little things that I do help them with, which is reframing, using the techniques of human consciousness. How can I get them unstuck out of anger? How can you have compassion for your dad? How can you have forgiveness? How can you look at this differently out of being a victim into, self-empowerment? And I tell them, life is your teacher and your dad is your greatest teacher. He's teaching you all these horrible things of what not to do and how you want to be as a human being. So have grace for him and have mercy for him, because his life is miserable. His life is miserable, and you're going to have a beautiful life as soon as you heal and recover. It's just temporary. It's not permanent.
So, and you're not professionally treating your son, but you are walking alongside of him in a journey for forgiveness. And so just by being the example of forgiving the unforgivable and him seeing you do that, and then you, of course, expressing, not pushing him, because you can't push somebody to forgive anybody. That's
I know.
Right. But you're doing it and he's seeing you do it. That's the most important thing. Is you're walking alongside him and saying, this is what I'm doing, because it takes both of you, right? And so there's a lot of strength there and bonding that I feel like, who am I? I'm not professional, but it seems like a really great opportunity to walk along your son's side and show him how to forgive the unforgivable. And in doing so, I think that you can get him to dodge all sorts of things that might be heading his way, being that his father is a narcissist. And so what an amazing opportunity. I think that is it's not cool that you've gone through what you've had to go through, but it is very cool that you and your son can be a team in that, right?
It is, because there's one trait that he really admires in me, and that's where now I can be around anyone toxic or dysfunctional, and it doesn't bother me. And I said, I finally got to the place where I accept them for who they are. It's not my job to fix them. It's not my job to judge them. I don't like I love them, but I don't like them. And what I don't like is their personality traits, their behaviors, the games they play. And when they say something that would be triggering, I let it blow by like a breeze. So my analogy on that, Ryan, and for everyone, is this truth. When we're around toxic people, think about it as seeds. They're throwing out seeds that are blowing in the wind. And when they say something that triggers you, this is what happens. Either you let that seed blow by and be like, that's their stuff, not mine. But this is what happens to a lot of people. We grab that seed and we water it with our thoughts, and we water it and we water it and we water it and we stew over it, and it grows roots and it festers, and then we're angry and we're bitter and resentful, and it wreaks havoc on our lives. We've got to learn to pull out the weeds and to recognize when there's a seed blowing in the wind. Do I want to pick up on that toxic seed and water it with my thoughts? Or do I want to give myself grace and let it go? Because it's so petty and stupid and immature and not worth my energy, my peace of mind.
Well, I think that was a beautiful finish. That was awesome, right? Because it's something that is a great piece of advice, even though I don't feel like advice is wisdom. It's a piece of wisdom is what I think.
It is wisdom because it's the truth.
Yeah.
Because we water them. Nobody else is watering them but we.
Right. Right. And then when we do that, and we do it unconsciously, if we're unconscious about it and we don't get ahead of it, a seed can get rooted, and then before we know it, it's growing, and then those roots grow deeper and stronger and stronger. And so that's why the best time to avoid those types of scenarios and circumstances is to get ahead of it, right? And I feel like you doing that type of work and helping people avoid letting that seed grow roots, right? Like you doing that kind of work is so amazing. And then you're also helping people deal with the roots that have already been there. And I think that that's another really cool thing. So I say it one more time, Kerie. I know that you had mentioned very loosely, like, okay, just, Google your name, Kerie Logan, or, just kind of go over real quickly, like where if people wanted to know more, like where exactly should they go first?
So the best place to go is mastertheupperrooms.com. You can click on free stuff. There's free images, free ebooks, free audios. There's even a link to schedule a free 15-minute consultation. You want to chat with me and, just tell me your story. Is there a light at the end of my tunnel? I'll talk to you. I'll be honest. I'll give you my sound advice. And if I can help you, great. If I feel like I can't, then I'll tell you. I'll give you a referral. And I always try not to have money stand in the way of someone healing. So if money's an issue, I'll give you options where you can go around that and where it meets your budget, because it's about you. I'm here to be of service. So it's very obvious to a lot of people.
I love it, Kerie. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on The Next Fix and sharing your comeback story and sharing these resources with people to where they want to start making a change in their lives. Now they have another avenue to go down and make that happen. And so thank you so much.